What's up, guys? I'm just gonna go over the astrology of April 2020. I'm gonna start with May 31st, just because there's a couple interesting things, mostly just with Mars. So March 31st, Mars enters Aquarius, and it immediately conjoins Saturn. So I think there's a lot of like restless tension. I think people are tired of being cooped up. Saturn in Aquarius is restrictions on the people, restrictions on being able to socialize, obviously, and so people are cooped up. And now Mars is just adding a lot of restless tension there and some frustration, and people might be upset with the government. Saturn rules the government or authority figures, and Mars could rule some frustration or volatility. So maybe people are upset with how the government is handling the situation. Maybe people are just restless and want to get out and do something. There could be a lot of this could manifest like online, since Aquarius rules the internet, online activity. So people might be communicating. People are obviously communicating a lot more online. People might be expressing their frustrations more online. Something to do with the government, frustration about the way these authority figures are handling the situation. Yeah, and then tomorrow, April 1st, there's a first quarter moon in Cancer. Sun in Aries, Moon in Cancer. And I always noticed this particular quarter moon, the first quarter moon in Cancer, because usually it's one of the most volatile days of the year, I've noticed, because you've got the Sun in Aries where it's exalted. So the Sun's very powerful in Aries. And the moon is in domicile in Cancer, so the moon's very much at home and very strong in Cancer as well. And when they're in the first quarter, when they're at a square aspect, they are at odds with each other. So it's fire versus water, sun versus moon. They're both strong, so they just clash, and it can be kind of disruptive, chaotic, destructive. So, especially considering that there was just the Mars-Saturn conjunction at the very beginning of Aquarius, there could be some kind of tension that leads to a further explosion or a feud of some sort. Just make sure this is working. Yeah, and it's just a quarter moon, so it'll just be for April 1st, and then it'll quickly dissipate. But yeah, that's something definitely worth noting. Also, at this time in general, there's kind of a mixed yin and yang. Earlier in March, there was a lot of yin energy, so now there's more yang. So there's more new stuff happening, more activity as we go on. So no exact aspects on the second. Moon enters Leo. So the first quarter moon aspect will fade away, and then the moon will start to trine the sun. So we might get more new stuff happening since it's a fire trine. Might be a little bit more harmony, especially as Mars is separating from Saturn. And then Friday the 3rd, Venus enters Gemini, where it will stay for 4 months because it'll retrograde there this year. Also, we have Mercury finally conjoining Neptune in Pisces. So Mercury's in detriment and fall in Pisces, and Pisces is ruled by Neptune, and Neptune is in Pisces. So now that Mercury, I kind of think of it as like Mercury's getting beat up by Neptune in Neptune's house. Neptune's kind of dominating little Mercury in Neptune's house, in Neptune's sign. So, Mercury's been in Neptune a long time, since February. So, people might be confused. People might be receiving incorrect information. The media might not be reliable at all. And these are themes that have been happening since February, but it'll be just much more pronounced on April 3rd because of the conjunction with Neptune. Um, so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to be confused about. People just might not be thinking totally clearly. Another thing, too, is that Pisces is kind of an isolating sign, and Mercury is the communicator. So when Mercury's in Pisces, especially conjunct Neptune, the people or the minds that would usually be communicative and be bringing information, they might be unavailable. They might be self-isolating. Because Mercury in Pisces just kind of disappears, and everyone's like, what the hell, where's my information, where's the communicator, the messenger god is gone. But Mercury's like, nope, I gotta just disappear for a while and just hang out in my cave. I gotta spend some hard alone time with Neptune. So our normal sources of information might be unreliable. They might be giving incorrect information, or they might not be there at all. Yeah, and it kind of just goes with the whole. It's an isolating theme. People have a lot of time to stop and think to themselves, like, what do I believe? That would be the more positive side of that aspect, I think. People, it's a time to just go inward and think about, what do I feel about the situation? Like, do I have any intuitive messages, or maybe it's time to just not even think about anything and just kind of just chill and just be alone with my own thoughts, and that could be really dark too, but it could be a lot of things. It's Pisces, so like, who knows? But everything's kind of up in the air, everything's very wishy-washy and intangible. But I'm happy that Mercury's conjoining Neptune, because Mercury's out of retrograde, it's going direct, it's going very fast, and it's about 2/3 of the way through Pisces, so pretty soon it'll pass Neptune, and then it's getting closer to the end of Pisces, so that's good. And then the other thing for April 3rd, we're still on April 3rd here. Like I said, Venus enters Gemini, and Venus is a little bit unstable in Gemini, but it likes the sign all right. Also, it starts to trines Saturn and it trines Mars, which are at the beginning of Aquarius. So the earlier situation that I talked about from May 31st, when Mars is conjunct Saturn, there's some kind of tension or some kind of irritability, some kind of volatile situation with the government. But on April 3rd, once Venus enters Gemini, it might alleviate those tensions a little bit. There could be maybe some fiscal relief of some sort, like bringing money to the people, bringing abundance to the people, or some kind of softening of the situation, of the isolation and the quarantine. Maybe people will be getting financial relief, or maybe something will come about that will make the situation easier. Some kind of love and beauty and money type thing from Venus will enter the situation. So I think that's a good thing. Even though Venus was in Taurus where it rules, I think it's still good that Venus is coming into Gemini, just because it's helping the situation with that trine to Mars and Saturn. What else? Okay, Saturday, April 4th, Pluto, or I guess I should say Jupiter conjoins Pluto, and this is something we've been feeling for a while, because Jupiter and Pluto have both been hanging out right at 24 degrees Capricorn for like at least a few weeks already now. So they've basically been conjunct, but they finally technically actually conjoin on Saturday, April 4th. And this aspect could go a lot of different ways. I think Pluto is very tied in with this whole episode that we're all experiencing. Pluto rules death and destruction and uncomfortable transformation and change and evolution. And I think the Saturn Pluto conjunction back in January was sort of when the coronavirus was festering and becoming a big problem in China. So Jupiter coming into the picture kind of blows up Pluto, but it can also add abundance of some sort. Jupiter's in fall, so it's not the normal happy, fun, jovial Jupiter that we all know and love, but it still is Jupiter, so it could make the situation a little bit bittersweet. I mean, Jupiter rules luck and abundance, Pluto rules like death and destruction and transformation. So, like, there could be some kind of silver lining that will be pronounced on Saturday. But whatever it is has already been happening since this aspect has basically already been happening. But Saturday, there might be some kind of turning point where we realize maybe this total destruction to our whole society could be used as an opportunity to add some restructuring, some needed restructuring or improvement, or maybe Jupiter rules abundance, and Capricorn is like the banking system and our hierarchies and stuff. So it could have to do with some kind of fiscal relief. What else? Or Jupiter rules like education and stuff. So maybe there's some new awareness or information brought to light about the virus. Like if the virus is Pluto and Jupiter is education, maybe there's some progress being made by a university. Jupiter rules university, something like that. Some kind of turning point with this whole situation. Yeah. And the 5th and 6th of April, there's no aspects, no exact aspects. The moon is waxing in Virgo. I guess April 6th, the moon would, at the end of Virgo, it would be trining the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. So, I mean, yeah, nothing really major, but then April 7th, it gets interesting again. There's a full moon in Libra at 18 degrees. Let's see the exact full moon. Whoops. So, and there's a quincunx with Neptune. It's not a lot of aspects, but I mean, a full moon, just like any full moon, there'll be a little bit more chaos, more activity. It's sort of making a T-square with the Pluto-Jupiter conjunction, so there could be maybe some new information comes out about the virus or the situation that's happening, but it has some uncomfortable ramifications that make a lot of tension or make a sort of crossroads or something, because there's this T-square, so there's this very energetic, awkward aspect because it's a cardinal T-square. So there's like this this fork in the road, this place where we have multiple options, multiple directions we can go, and they're all three directions are demanding that we go a certain way, and you can only pick one. So there's this gritty, restless energy on April 7th, which is a Tuesday. Other than that, Mars is squaring Uranus on the same day on April 7th. So that's also very volatile, very unpredictable. I think it will have to do something with the fiscal relief, with the checks that they're supposedly going to be mailing out or something. I think people are going to be frustrated. Mars is still kind of conjunct Saturn, and they're both squaring Uranus. Uranus rules the people, and it's in the sign of money and wealth and home and security, sort of. Um, and it's square Mars, which is in the sign of Aquarius, which is the sign of the people and society. So also Mars and Saturn. Well, Mars is in Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus. So I think people there's this. It's kind of reigniting the Mars Saturn conjunction. I think people are upset. People are frustrated. People are restless. It has something to do with money or security, and there needs to be something done really quickly. It's a very like urgent situation, and people want an answer now, and they might not be able to get one with all these squares. There's this like gridlock, um, but squares do demand change. So while there's gridlock in the exact current situation, I think it will lead to some rapid reactions. There's a lot going on for sure. Other than that, Mercury makes a couple aspects on the same day on April 7th, Tuesday. Mercury, where's Mercury? Mercury's at 25 degrees Pisces. So it will sextile the now separating Jupiter Pluto conjunction. First, it will sextile Pluto, then it will sextile Jupiter. And I mean, I want to say that would give us some relief, but it's just a sextile, and Mercury's still in detriment and fall. And its ego's bruised after confronting Neptune, which so I mean, so there could be maybe some kind of silver lining or some kind of positive information, but again, it's not totally reliable since Mercury's in Pisces, it's in detriment. So Mercury's like trying to cheer us up a little bit, but I don't know. There could be some kind of so, and then Jupiter Pluto is kind of bittersweet too. So it's like Jupiter and Mercury are trying to help us out, but they're both in fall positions. So it's like they're just not at their best right now. On the 8th, Wednesday, the 8th of April, Mars sextile Chiron, which is not a big deal, but it's worth mentioning. Mars at 6 degrees Aquarius, Chiron at 6 degrees Aries. And it's kind of weird because Chiron's kind of weird in Aries because Chiron rules empathy and caring for another person, and Aries is all about the self. And Mars is weird in Aquarius because Mars is about the self and Aquarius is about the group. So both these planets are kind of out of place, even though neither is technically in detriment. But yeah, they're just making this kind of awkward sextile. And with Chiron and Aries, everyone's wounds are on the surface. People are like openly emotional and openly vulnerable or wounded. So Mars is kind of sextiling that. So I don't know if it would help that situation or just kind of piss people off more. But Mars and Chiron are communicating. So, I mean, it's just weird. It's weird that Mars, the warrior god, is having a small side conversation with Chiron, the wounded healer. So, like, I mean, there's a lot of weird, like, awkward energies going on. Moon just entered Scorpio too, so it's now waning after the full moon. So the energy of the full moon is kind of calming down a little bit, but then there's still these squares and stuff. Yeah, at least there's a couple sextiles that maybe help the situation. Also, Venus and Mars are still trining, not exactly by the same degree, but they're still trining in air signs. So that's the one. That's probably like the most positive part of what's going on. And it's in the sign of, or in the element of air, in the element of the people, of humanitarianism. So I think there's this tension between the people and the government, and the media is not reliable right now. But I think the silver lining is with the people, with the common people, the interactions between the common people. People are maybe reaching out online. There is the element of online interactions. Maybe people are just spending more time together with each other, just in general, and having just coming together to help each other out, and just to whether they're working or staying at home, the people are holding everything together. This trine is like the backbone of this chart. I feel like it's the one positive. And Mars and Venus are actually more like sexual or flirty. So like I don't. Maybe people are actually really somehow getting along. Maybe there's a shared trauma that people are kind of bonding over. Yeah, I think that's the most positive thing I can see here. There's no exact aspects on the 9th. On April 10th, Venus sextiles Chiron. So it's almost like there's a double sextile. Yeah, well, I mean, there is. Venus and Mars are trining, and they're both sextile in Chiron. So yeah, again, like I said, there's a shared trauma. Chiron is in Aries, which is the self. Venus and Mars in air signs. And it's one of the only Yang configurations, like one of the only extroverted or outgoing configurations. So yeah, I think the only free flowing energy is just between people in a way, just between people's interactions with each other. It's still free flowing, probably thanks to the internet. Yeah, and people are obviously still communicating, maybe bonding, helping each other somehow, maybe even flirting or something. Mars trine Venus is very sexual, so but in a kind of positive, fun way, I would say. Saturday the 11th, Mercury sextile Saturn. Oh, Mercury just entered Aries. Yeah, so Mercury enters Aries and then sextile Saturn. Yeah, so it's weird. There's multiple sextiles happening this week. So I think this is big because Mercury finally leaves Pisces, of course. Yeah, and again, Mercury's in detriment and in fall in Pisces. Mercury does not have a good time in Pisces at all. It's very confused, very isolated, very. It's not like normal Mercury at all. It's either isolated and therefore not giving out information, or it's running around giving completely incorrect information, whether it's fear mongering or just telling everybody what they want to hear. It's not reliable in Pisces. So finally it leaves Pisces and enters Aries, and Mercury is in joy in Aries. So it has a lot of fun there. It's not at home. It's not Aries doesn't rule. It doesn't represent what Mercury's all about. But Mercury has fun here because it's very confident and energized, and it's happy to be out of Pisces. It's happy to be in a new situation, a new cycle. So the only bad thing would be like maybe if people are overly confident, they might be giving out incorrect information or not communicating. They might be overly communicating, or they might be communicating too confidently or too outgoingly, where it's a little bit domineering. But still, that's way better than in Pisces, where it's just totally confused. So Mercury wakes up. And a lot of times when planets leave Pisces, it's almost like, whoa, like what even happened? It's like you fell asleep during Pisces, now you woke up and you're like, there's a weird thing with time that happens where it's like that felt so long yet so short. Probably mostly long because this is the first time Mercury has been out of Pisces since February. So yeah, Mercury wakes up. I think that might bring some clarity to the situation. The media might be a little bit more reliable. There might be new information. And then right away, Mercury sextile Saturn. So again, Saturn rules the government and authority figures, and it's in Aquarius. And Saturn's the one putting restrictions on us being able to get into groups or putting restrictions on people in general, because Aquarius rules people and groups and communication and everything. Um, so, so Mercury might, on April 11th, Saturday, there might be some new information about, maybe the government might shift its policies related to what's going on a little bit. Maybe there's some new information about what's going on, something like that. Something a little bit uplifting or something to get the ball rolling with this whole situation. People might be a little bit more, maybe a little bit more optimistic, because in Neptune everything's just, in Pisces everything's just so confusing, and it's easy to just feel like hopeless or depressed or misled. Or if you do feel optimistic, it could be incorrectly. You might be just so now that once Mercury's in Aries, people might be a little bit more optimistic, but maybe more rightfully so. There might be a reason to be optimistic. Maybe you could see the light at the end of the tunnel, something like that. And then also right after that, well, I guess on Saturday and Sunday, so the 11th and 12th, Saturday and Sunday, Mercury is also squaring the nodes. So again, that just makes it that much more of a big deal. So it's like, I think everything kind of shifts that day, that weekend. Mostly Saturday the 11th, Mercury, bam, leaves Pisces, enters Aries, wakes up, brings us new information about the government. But it's something that totally shifts the timeline, or it's something that really changes the whole situation. It could be something totally out of nowhere that no one saw coming, but some kind of new development, something that changes the whole picture. Since it's squaring the nodes, it's a big turning point. Yeah, so this information about the government, or from the government, or just about the situation in general, or maybe just people waking up and having a new outlook, maybe there's some kind of new development happening. I think it will change the situation for the good, the weekend of the 11th and 12th. So that's good. Mercury's in a much better place now. And I guess I should mention the moon is now waning gibbous on that same weekend, so it's going to be trining the sun again from Sagittarius. It's not really aspecting anything. It's barely worth mentioning, but that's also kind of positive. The sun and moon are trining. So yeah, that looks like a relatively good weekend compared to what we've been dealing with. And again, Venus and Mars are still trining. So there's actually, I'm not saying it's all good. I mean, Pluto and Jupiter are still conjunct, and obviously, I'm not saying, obviously we're going to be dealing with the same types of situations, but there should be some kind of positive development, I would say. April 11th and 12th. And then the 13th, there's no exact aspects. The moon, though, is in Capricorn, so it just crossed the south node, and then now it's approaching, like every time the moon enters Capricorn the past few months, it approaches Pluto and Jupiter and then Saturn, so it kind of reignites this whole situation, this whole tense, gritty, transformative, destructive, etc., situation. But then it doesn't technically, there isn't, the third quarter moon happens on the 14th, which is Tuesday the 14th. So that looks a little bit nastier than what I was just talking about. Because again, the moon will conjoin Pluto and then square the sun as it's conjoining Jupiter. And it's still approaching Saturn, all at the end of Capricorn. And then you're dealing with the Aries Capricorn square, because the sun, of course, is toward the end of Aries, and it's squaring the moon, Jupiter, and Pluto, and kind of Saturn. And so yeah, so I mean maybe so those positive developments are needed, I guess, because then the situation gets a little bit more grim right after that. Um, so it's like the weekend, there's some actual positive, free flowing energy, but um, then going into the week, Monday, Tuesday, gets a little bit more serious, and we're reminded of the seriousness of the situation, I guess, somehow. Um, and again, the Aries Capricorn square is pretty, could be pretty volatile, or at least there'll be some kind of friction. There'll be some kind of gridlock, some kind of like two different forces pulling each other different ways. Um, the third quarter square is a little bit because this is a third quarter moon, so it's basically a third quarter square aspect. It's a square aspect, but it's from the third quarter. Uh, and the third quarter square is slightly less volatile than the first quarter square because things on some level are sort of wrapping up. Like, although it is a chaotic time where there's a lot of energy flying around, a lot of different stuff happening, and it's a crisis of consciousness of sorts. Um, the third quarter is a little bit more about just taking a step back. Like, as everything is all chaotic and happening, you're a little bit more removed from the situation, or a little bit more aloof. So you're kind of integrating everything. That's kind of what's happening because the moon is 3/4 of the way through this lunar cycle. So it's a time where you're making the last changes of this lunar cycle. Um, so, I mean, there's a lot going on. It's gritty because Aries wants to just go, go, go and just start stuff, and Capricorn's like, no, we need to start it slow and actually think about stuff before we just do stuff. And Capricorn's very serious, and Aries is very reckless in comparison. So yeah, people are frustrated. There's people are obviously frustrated about the situation. Maybe uh, I think whatever the government decides to do, I think people will be upset. At least people will be more aware of what's going on since Mercury's in Aries. But that could be almost bad in a way too, because maybe people are more aware, but it's kind of a painful realization after Mercury left Pisces. It's like, okay, we woke up now, but it's like, whoa, shit, like we have a lot of stuff to do to deal with this situation. Maybe people are realizing the complexity of the situation, or the health and economic impact, and everybody wants an answer now. We're upset and we want to be calmed down right now, but there's not an answer right now. We gotta deal with this. There's a lot of friction. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of stuff happening that people didn't predict would happen. Um, yeah, and the moon is just adding, the emotional body is just bringing light to the death and destruction and rebirth and the, the limits. Going forward, Wednesday the 15th of April. So the moon will enter Aquarius. At least it'll be separating from that third quarter aspect. So that, again, quarter moons, lunar aspects in general are very quick. So that is a 1 day thing, and then it will kind of calm down a little bit going into Wednesday. But still, the moon, just once it enters Aquarius, Saturn's there to meet it. So Saturn is not a super friendly greeter of sorts. So like the moon is kind of rudely greeted by Saturn as it enters Aquarius, and then it approaches Mars, who is not super nice either. And again, it brings the attention back to this situation that's been happening ever since the Saturn Mars conjunction of May 31st. So maybe people are still a little bit upset. Of course, I mean, of course, people will still be upset about being cooped up at home, of the restrictions being put on them. Um, so yeah, the moon, although it's separating from the quarter moon, as the moon is getting less light going into Wednesday, April 15th, it calms down but reawakens the tension from earlier, I guess, if that makes sense. And technically the sun probably makes the exact square to Jupiter early April 15th, so that those squares are still happening. Um, so yeah, the situation is definitely still very intense. I wouldn't, and it's only May 31st as I'm making this video, so I don't see things getting much better before halfway through the month, or at least until halfway through the month for sure. Everything's still very intense. Um, Again, there is that Venus trine Mars. That's like the one nice thing, but it's still a very serious situation. I think that's kind of just saying that people are making the best of it. People are actually being productive. Like I've noticed, there's a lot of people jogging if they're stuck at home. Like people are actually trying to be productive and trying to use the situation to spend time with friends and family, stuff like that, or just to help each other. So I mean, that is positive, but it's only people are just trying to make the best of the situation. It's still a challenging situation for sure. Still on halfway through the month. April 16th, there's no exact aspects. The moon will be like a crescent moon, it'll be waning. So things actually might get a little bit more peaceful. I mean, maybe there's like some bad news that comes out from the weekend of the 11th and 12th, and then people are really upset the first half of the week uh, on the 13th, 14th, and 15th, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of April. But then going into Thursday the 16th, um, some of these squares are separating a little bit, and the moon is becoming a crescent moon. It's becoming a dark moon. So I think the initial shock will kind of reverberate, and people will. It's still serious and tense, but people are kind of dealing with the situation. They're not so shocked going into April 16th, 17th, and 18th. Yeah. Going forward, Saturday the 18th, Mercury sextiles Mars, and it's also sextiling Venus, so that's really nice. You've got all three of the inner planets agreeing with each other and having like a good conversation. So Venus and Mars trining, and then Mercury sextiling Mars and Venus. So people are actually getting along. There's some kind of positive interaction. Um, there's some kind of free flowing positive development regarding our love and financial situation somehow in the midst of all this, um, and the information that's now being brought to us, and the former tension that was Mars and Aquarius. Uh, yeah, I mean, if we were just looking at Venus in Gemini, sextile Mercury and Aries, sextile Mars and Aquarius with Mars and Venus, if it was just that, it would just be kind of like a party energy. Um, it would just be a fun time to just do new things and just to socialize and just play and have fun. So, I mean, and that's of course not thinking about all the heavy outer planet stuff and the Capricorn stuff and the Sun squared Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto. So I mean, I guess it's just what I was saying. People are making the best of the situation. There is a positive, resilient spirit among the people, I would say. I don't know about the government. I think we're in times like this, we realize that the higher the more complex, higher structures of society are not so reliable necessarily. It might take them time to like deal with the situation or time to react. But when it comes to just the common people, that's where the strength is right now. For the meantime, for sure. That's the third weekend of April, April 18th. And then April 19th, yeah, there's just tons of weird aspects to the all month. The sun enters Taurus, 0 degrees Taurus. So, of course, right as it enters Taurus, it will soon trine Saturn. Or no, sorry, square Saturn. Since Saturn's still at the very beginning of Aquarius. So again, like people are restless. They're not happy with the government. Also, the sun is starting to approach Uranus, which is at 6 degrees Taurus. So there's some kind of new situation developing, like as if we didn't already have enough crazy situations. But there's a new thing that's going to come up. Once the sun, well, I'll talk about it in a second, but going forward, there's no exact aspects on Monday the 20th. The moon is a dark moon. It's probably barely visible, if at all. It's closing the cycle. It's in Aries. It's conjoining Chiron and Mercury as it approaches the sun for a new moon. Other than that, there's not a whole lot going on. Venus and Mars are still trining, thank God. Jupiter and Pluto are still kind of conjunct. They're 2 degrees away from each other, or a degree and a half away from one another. So it's kind of more the same situation. The sun in Taurus is a little bit more stable. I don't know what I'm talking about. No exact aspects. Tuesday, April 21st, the sun makes an exact square to Saturn. It's probably early in the day. It's tense. I mean, just in general, if we use an orb of like a few more degrees, the sun is applying to its conjunction with Uranus, and they're both kind of squaring Saturn, and then sort of making an out of sign square to Jupiter and Pluto. So again, there's been a lot of squares. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of greedy decisions that need to be made regarding. I see the coronavirus as being represented by mostly Pluto, the former Pluto-Saturn conjunction back in January, and then the Pluto-Jupiter conjunction. And so it's obviously in a challenging aspect with Uranus, which rules the people, and the Sun, which sort of rules the people too, in a way. Wednesday the 22nd, the moon catches up to the sun at 3 degrees Taurus, and there's a new moon. And it's conjunct Uranus with an orb of 3 degrees, square Saturn with an orb of 2 degrees, and then again it's sort of square Jupiter and Pluto, out of sign square with Jupiter and Pluto, with an orb of like 10 degrees or so. So boom, there's like another new development. There's an unpredictable, like Uranus, unpredictable new thing. But again, with conjunctions, new moons are quiet. New moons are quieter than quarter moons or full moons because it's the time where you're planting the seed. So we might not see what happens Wednesday, April 22nd. We might not really appreciate the full ramifications of what happens on this day until a couple days later, when the moon, over the next week, when the moon will go into Gemini and Cancer and it'll start getting more light again. That's when you'll understand what happened with this new moon. You'll see it a few days later. But something's happening, some kind of unpredictable new development, and it's at complete odds with the government. People are pissed off. And I think it's going to have to do with the financial relief. Like maybe it'll be delayed, or maybe it'll be given to the wrong people, or something. People are upset about it one way or another. Or if I interpret it more broadly, I just say, just in general, people are upset with the government for something. Maybe people are just tired of being cooped up or something, but the common people, are not getting along with the government, and the energy is more so on the people side. It's more on the side of the new moon because that's kind of where the sun is. So maybe people are upset, are right to be upset with their leaders, um, or with how they're handling the situation. That's midweek, Wednesday, the 22nd of April. The 23rd of April, it's not on this chart, but Ceres enters Pisces. So that's kind of interesting. Um, and we got the North Node at 0 degrees, so it's so close to switching signs, to switching axes. South Node at 0 degrees Capricorn, North Node at 0 degrees Cancer. We're super close to another new cycle, and we've had tons of cycles switching over, like very long cycles that ended, especially in January. But all this year, we've got tons of small chapters and medium-sized chapters and big chapters all ending at the same time for 2020, and then new ones beginning. So there's tons of that stuff, and the nodes switching signs is just another example of that. But that won't actually happen until May 5th, I think, early May. Okay, there's no exact aspects on the 24th. On Saturday the 25th, Mercury will square Pluto. Mercury is at 26 Aries, so Mercury's flying through all of April. It already went through most of Aries by the 25th, and then it makes an exact square to Pluto. First Pluto, and then soon after that it'll square Jupiter. I think, yeah, it squares Jupiter Sunday the 26th. But on April 25th, right as Mercury squares Pluto, Pluto will station retrograde. And of course, this is Pluto we're talking about, so Pluto's very slow. It's just interesting that Mercury makes that quick. Mercury's going so fast, but it makes like a drive-by square. This kind of edgy conversation with Pluto right as Pluto stations retrograde. And of course, it's Pluto, so Pluto's basically been stationary for like a month at this point. Like yeah, so it's so even though there's not, it's a very Plutonian month. Pluto's very strong. Obviously, there's a lot of death and destruction, but destruction is sometimes necessary, especially with larger systems, in order to make change, to make room for new developments. So, I mean, yeah, this is all very Plutonian. You have to make hard decisions sometimes. Sometimes you lose things in order to realize your power is inside of you. These are all Pluto themes. You might not be at your job for a while and realize, like, I need to be really resilient. I need to think about, we're all in like a survival mode type thing. So, type of mindset with Pluto just so strong. And plus there's those aspects, the Sun, Pluto square, Pluto conjunct Jupiter, and everything. With Pluto basically stationary this whole month, yeah, it just makes it that much more pronounced. But Mercury makes this quick, edgy. So there might be some information that comes out related to what's going on, related to a virus or something, but it's not maybe what we want to hear. Could be some true but not so pleasant information, or maybe the virus gets worse. I don't know. I don't want to say that. It should get better going over the next couple months for sure, but just on this day, on the 25th, there's some challenging. But Mercury's moving so fast that it's a very quick aspect. I mean, just by the next day, Mercury's already 2 degrees. It's already 3 degrees away from squaring Pluto. So So there's this quick, unpleasant, gritty energy between Mercury and Pluto on Saturday the 25th, right as Pluto goes retrograde. And actually, now that I think about it, it's the only planet that's retrograde. So everything's been direct for I think basically all of April. So lots of new developments happening. Like, of course, lots of new stuff happening. But Pluto actually turns inward, so I think that's good. I think that after the 25th, it'll give us some time to process the stuff that Pluto's been throwing at us. Pluto's like, all right, I just shoveled a lot onto you, so now I'm going to take a break. So now it goes inward, and we have a chance to integrate everything that Pluto's been throwing at us. Yeah, and Pluto retrogrades are, I think Pluto's retrograde almost half the time for like 5 months out of the year or something like that. So it's not uncommon at all, but that'll be intense. But once it goes retrograde, it might give us some time to react to everything. Um, Also on the 26th, Sunday, April 26th, Mercury squares Jupiter. And I think this is actually, so of course, yeah, basically Jupiter and Pluto are still pretty much conjunct. So right after Mercury squares Pluto, it'll square Jupiter. And the Mercury Jupiter square is a little bit more, it's actually a little bit harmonious because Mercury is a very multifaceted planet. Jupiter is a very multifaceted planet. They both rule signs which square each other, so they actually don't mind being in a slightly confrontational. They're both like debaters. They're both about ideas and stuff about expansion. So they aren't very offended when they get into an aspect like this. So, but it is a square. So there's some kind of development that there's some kind of information or some kind of change regarding the situation that requires change, requires people to react, requires adaptation. But it's not, it's very quick. Mercury's flying through. And I think the Mercury Jupiter conversation is a little bit less foreboding than the Mercury Pluto conversation, if I could put it that way. Also, we have Sun conjunct Uranus that same day. So again, it's just more stuff happening. I think things are still intense. Pluto's stationary all month, basically, but specifically right on the weekend, Saturday the 25th. And then the Sun conjoins Uranus on the 26th. So then, boom, this is a once in a year aspect with Sun on top of Uranus. So there's some kind of new development. There's some kind of mass awakening a little bit. And again, this happens every year, so it's not like a super big deal, but there's some kind of shift in consciousness or shift in the world. It could be one and the same. People might sometimes Sun conjunct Uranus could be really uncomfortable because you realize you become more aware, but then once you're more aware, it can be kind of painful because you realize that there have been certain situations in your life that were fine before. You didn't even think of anything of it, but now you're more aware. You realize like this is not okay, and it's like your standards get a little bit higher because of your increased awareness. So, and that could be it could be a reaction to a new development, or there could be a new development in reaction to that, or like it'll of course like it'll trigger many reactions, and it's all still kind of roughly squaring these Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto. So also, Mercury's nearing the end of Aries, so Mercury's very restless. It flew through Aries and it's almost at critical degree in Aries. So I mean, so people are waking up. there's some kind of new development, but who knows what it is with knowing Uranus. Yeah. Um, the next day, Monday the 27th, Mercury then flies through the end of Aries and enters Taurus, so it's approaching the now separating Uranus Sun conjunction or Sun Uranus conjunction. Um, Also, the nodes are so close to switching signs, so it's like there's going to be more developments. There's like constant new developments all month. There's constant new headlines all month, and I think it's going to be intense all month. I don't. Um, yeah. But Mercury in Taurus is a little bit more reserved, a little bit more calm. Mercury does all right in Taurus. So, and then we're in a new moon cycle. So the moon is it's a waxing crescent. It's approaching the first quarter square. Um, it's not a lot of exact aspects, but still, we're still feeling on April 27th. We're still feeling the Sun Uranus conjunction, and Mercury is kind of calming down a little bit in Taurus, but also approaching Uranus. So it's also going to trigger some kind of new development or awakening. The 28th, there's no exact aspects. The moon is going through Cancer, which it rules. Sun is in Taurus. Um, Pluto just retrograded back to the 24th degree of Capricorn. Mars and Venus are still trining in Aquarius and Gemini, which that's good. I mean, like, thank God we have Mars and Venus trining basically all month. Um, there's not a lot of fire energy. The only fire planet is Chiron, and Chiron's not even really a planet. Um, so the 29th, Wednesday, Pallas moves into Aquarius. I honestly don't follow that very much, but it is interesting. I might look into it just because it's interesting that Pallas. I know Pallas is an asteroid. I believe it's in the asteroid belt. It's called Pallas Athena, so it's associated with like the. She's a sort of warrior goddess. She's swifter than Hermes, more cunning than I'm not sure. I need to research it, but it's interesting that this asteroid moves into Aquarius right when all this action right at the Capricorn Aquarius cusp. So it's going to Aquarius to meet Saturn, and it's right just in front of Jupiter, but behind Saturn. So that's kind of interesting. I might have to look into that more. On Thursday the 30th, the very end of the month, then Mercury finally catches up to Uranus. I mean, I shouldn't say finally because it's flying, it's going super fast. But again, kind of similar. There's some kind of new awakenings, new information. Media has a new twist or something. There's new people are waking up. Unexpected shifts. Unexpected shifts regarding money or resources or the natural world, since Taurus is a very earthy sign. There could be some weather events or earthquakes, or maybe the governments will be rolling out stimulus packages with this Uranus Taurus highlight, something like that. And then also the same day we've got the first quarter moon in Leo. So by the end of April, since the sun is in Taurus, first quarter moon in Leo. So again, there's new developments just like with every first quarter moon, but it's not going to be as intense as the Cancer first quarter moon, which at the beginning of April. Um, it's Taurus. The Taurus Leo square is a little bit less intense. I don't think they disagree so much. Um, Also, the sun is kind of in a moon sign, and the moon is in a sun sign, meaning like Taurus is the sign of the moon's exaltation, and then Leo is the sign of the sun's rulership. So they're almost sort of in mutual. They're mutually agreeing, kind of. So yeah, so there could be some shifts and some restless energy, but it's not totally destructive like some of the energies we've been dealing with. And that's basically it. That's what I've got for April. Um, yeah, and so just to sort of summarize, we've got um, well, May 31st, Mars conjunct Saturn, Mars moving into Aquarius, and Mars will stay in Aquarius the rest of the month, and then Venus moving into Gemini early April, where it will stay for the next 4 months, and then Mercury starts off the month in Pisces, flies through all of Aries, and then goes into Taurus by the end of the month. So, um, yeah, flies through all of Aries in less than like 2 weeks, I think. So, I mean, yeah, it's a very tense month. It's a very Plutonian month, very destructive month, very. The only thing you can expect the unexpected. Expect that there should be headlines like every other day or every day through the whole month. It's going to be very intense. There's going to be people are upset. People are fighting with the government, but I don't think people are fighting with each other. I think the common people are banding together and making the most of their resources, making the most of their relationships, and learning that we can count on each other. We can all count on each other more than we can count on these large, complicated, outdated systems, these hierarchical complex systems, right? Because of times of immense change often bring destruction to large complex systems. Complex is difficult to maintain. It's the simple things that are more reliable. It's just me and you and just the things we can see and touch that will be there for us sort of. And yeah, it's very Plutonian, I guess. But anyway, that's pretty much what I have for April. Um, I do feel like, I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot of developments, but I think it will gradually get a little bit intense. It'll be a bumpy road, but it'll be a roller coaster, but it'll gradually get maybe a tiny bit less intense by the end of April. Hopefully, I think it will. Um, yeah, but yeah, this is just an interesting month in a very interesting year. So yeah, we'll see if you want me to do any readings or anything. Um, just post a comment. Otherwise, I might start doing forecasts. I'm not sure. I'm kind of waiting, honestly, for Mercury to enter Aries. So after April 11th, I'll probably be a lot more active on here. So yeah, so I'll see you later. Thanks.